The sacrifice was put into the stars, and it was read from the stars. But it became a literal sacrifice when it entered into the minds of man instead of becoming a sacrifice that was spiritual. It was a misreading. And so that was fine up until a point when finally David saw the light. And if you look at Psalm verse 40, go to verse 6. Finally, David says, sacrifice and offering you did not desire, my ears have you opened. In other words, oh, I understand. Finally, I understand. Finally, I'm enlightened. Finally, I have become aware. But how many animals were tortured? How many animals suffered? In the millions, millions of animals suffered. Millions of animals were tortured in these wild, decadent types of things which were called of God and beloved by God. And finally David says, wrong, it's not beloved of God. You never wanted anything like this. But they saw lupus and they knew lupus and the animal must be sacrificed, and so they literally sacrificed animals. But if you're in the book of Psalms, continue on and go to Psalm 51. Psalm 51, and David comes back and explains it beautifully. And go to verse 16. For you desire not sacrifice, else I would give it. Certainly David would give it. David wrote the Psalms, the lineage of David, the house of David, the son of David. And here is David saying, you don't want this, or I would do it. Of all people, God, I would do it. You don't want us to do this. And yet for thousands of years before, they had done this. Dragging bulls and dragging doves and dragging sheep and animals dying all over the place in God's house to fulfill what? To fulfill a misreading of the stars. And then David goes on in Psalm 51:16 and says, the sacrifice, Psalm 51:17, the sacrifice of God are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart. Oh God, that you will not despise. In other words, that's what this is all about. God did not want the four-legged animal out there sacrificed. He wanted the animal that roams around in here sacrificed. But we took it literally. And so they thought they could get off the hook. And what do? We'll take a little goat. I'm out catting around. I did all of these sins. I got snockered and all of these things. I did evil in the face of the lies of the Lord. I'll get myself a sheep. Here, slit his throat. I'm off the hook. And that is how we figured it out. Yeah. But of course, David found out, no, that's not true. So here they are. Who inflicted this horror on literally millions and millions of innocent animals? Who inflicted this horror on them? God's chosen people. God's chosen people. Now I want to show you something. Come with me on page 579 of those little Bibles in the Old Testament. Go to the book of Isaiah. Okay? And let's go to the Isaiah 1. And I'm dwelling on this for a little bit because I want to show you just how idiotic and how off base we get when we start reading the Bible literally. In Isaiah chapter 1, go to verse 11. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me? I'm full of the burnt offerings and rams and fat beasts. I delight not in the blood of bulls or lambs or goats. And now this is a devastating one next. Remember, they've done this for hundreds of thousands of years, and look what God says through Isaiah in the very next, Isaiah 1:12. When you come to appear before me, in other words, when you come into the temple, who has required this at your hand? Who told you to do this? Who told you to turn the temple into a slaughterhouse? Do you see it? Who told you to do this? And you think of all of the things that you've gone through in religion, of all of the things that you've done, and think back, who told you that that's what God required? I used to hide under a grandstand when I watched the Newark Bears when I was a little kid, sucking on my hot dog so God wouldn't see me. Chomping on a hot dog while I could hear everybody screaming, oh, it's a babysit. I wanted to go up there and say, but I wanted to eat my hot dog, but if I went out from under the stands, God would see me. So I ate my hot dog and I burped my way back to my seat. But God didn't see me, see? But deep within I knew that I had pulled a fast one on God. Who told me such stuff? Where did that come from? There's an interesting thing coming up in one of our teachings on Sunday morning very shortly, where the elders of the church come up to Jesus and they say, hey, you, where do you get the authority to do this stuff? What are you telling people? What was he telling people? A single eye, cast your net to the right side, enter within, take no thought. Where do you get this stuff from? And Jesus turned around and says, did you see John the Baptist? Yeah. Where did he get the authority to do that? It's not in your Old Testament. It's not in your law. Where did that come from? And have Christians ever stopped at that? Where the heck did that come from? It's not in the Old Testament. There's not one mention of the word baptism in the Old Testament. So where'd it go? It's not in the law. What, some crazy guy in the middle of the desert starts dunking people in the lake and this becomes the most important thing that we do? We can't have our babies. Oh my God, we must dip our babies and sprinkle our baby. Why? Because this guy was eating wasps out in the middle of the desert, did it? Where'd he find out this one? You know what? That came from a place called Sumeria thousands of years ago. I'm going to show you something. I don't want you to tell anybody this because this is inner stuff. You won't say nothing. It came in Sumeria, the celebration of the god Ea. He was the water god, and they used to sprinkle for the celebration of the god Ea. And when you translate the word Ea into Greek, it becomes Ionis. And when you translate it into Latin, Ioannis. And when you translate it into English, John. Ea and John, the water god. Jesus, amen, the sun god. And Jesus said, I tell you right now, fellas, you don't have the slightest idea of what this is about, and I'm not going to waste my time talking. Look in here, I'll be back. Bye, baby. And that was the end of it. But he wasn't going to talk to them because they were looking on things they had no idea. And this is not anything that I read or anything, but I feel very strongly that this Ea, God of the water, is a root of the word east. I'll have to research that. I just feel that way. From which everything comes.